Hello everyone, welcome back to Trek A Day. Another one of these what if scenarios. What would have happened if Star Trek Phase 2 had gone through and Star Trek had made a return in the 70s through the early 80s to the TV screen rather than going into movies? How would the fate of the franchise be different today? I love the Phase 2 concept, and as much as I really like the Star Trek movies, at its core, I think the franchise fares better in the television realm. And I've always been curious and wonder what it would have been like to have that Phase 2 series. I'd love to hear what you think that would have brought about. How would that have changed the reality of Star Trek as we know it today? For me, just obviously, this is something we can never know. I think what would have happened, just my personal opinion, I think it would have come back with that original cast and, of course, the new cast members that were reworked then for the motion picture. And I think it would have been a fascinating show. I think it would have felt much more like a mix of the original series from the 60s and the tone of the motion picture, which was, reworked from the pilot ideas for that series. And I think as a fan of Star Trek and sci-fi, I would have really enjoyed that. But I do feel like what probably would have happened would have been Phase 2 comes out, it lasts however many years, and then Star Trek kind of rides off into the sunset with much of that original cast, and maybe comes back in some future iteration, but I don't think we would have had that huge surge of popularity in the late 80s through the early 2000s with TNG and Deep Space Nine and Voyager and ending with Enterprise. I feel like that entire era might not have happened and Star Trek might have disappeared for a long time. And I think a lot of that is because there was already a lot of worry, trepidation, almost outrage when Next Gen was coming out, in that now we view it as a franchise, Star Trek as its thing. But when you only had that original cast, they were Star Trek. It wasn't Star Trek was this brand. There are lots of different iterations. Star Trek, these people were that brand. And so there's a lot of pushback. And I feel like having the original cast movies still ongoing as TNG was taking off on the TV screen, having both at once really helped the franchise and a lot of the fan base kind of ease into the idea of the franchise expanding. And I think you would not have had that if, say, you again had the majority of the TOS people being, again, for another series of however many years, the face of Star Trek. And I feel like the resistance to change for Next Generation would have been stronger, and there wouldn't have been like a parallel thing. So in my opinion, that's what I think would have happened. I think Phase 2 might have come out, might have been really great, and maybe lasted, who knows, 4, 5, 6 years, and then I think Star Trek would have kind of petered out. That's what I think would have happened. I think things turned out for the better, but it would have been fascinating, and I'd love to hear what your opinion is. Maybe you think it would have made Star Trek even bigger and better to go that route in the long run. We'll never know, but it's just a curious thing to contemplate.